Sometimes Mike wakes up with a desire to change his life. There are days when he wants to start exercising and taking care of his health more, and there are days when he wants to spend more time reading or practicing meditation. So he decides to turn these intentions into new habits in his life. In the first few days, Mike feels excited and more energetic than ever. But as the days go by, what Mike calls new habits no longer bring him the excitement they did initially. Mike tells himself, "It's okay, I'll do it tomorrow." But tomorrow comes and he still doesn't feel like doing it. He repeats, "Tomorrow." This pattern continues until the new habits he desires seem to be forgotten. However, Mike is not alone in his struggle, because we all have experienced this. Why does this happen? Why is it so difficult to pursue new habits? Well, part of the reason is that the habit we are trying to form can feel overwhelming, leading to psychological resistance. Initially, while we are full of enthusiasm, everything becomes much easier. For example, spending an hour exercising doesn't seem difficult at all because the initial motivation is a strong drive. However, as the initial motivation fades, we also tend to set too high expectations for ourselves. We often tell ourselves, "I exercised for an hour on the first day, so from now on, I will do it every day." But when the initial motivation dissipates after a few days, we find ourselves lacking the drive to move forward, and the habit fails to form. That's why, lacking motivation, we may easily give up exercising altogether because dedicating an entire hour to workout seems too challenging. Therefore, instead of relying on motivation to propel us forward, we should focus on turning our new habits into actual routines. 1. The 2-minute rule and habit formation. Let me introduce you to the 2-minute rule. When you think about reading an entire book, meditating for an hour, or running 10 miles, this habit can become dauntingly difficult to start. Most tasks we procrastinate on are not inherently hard to do. You avoid starting the task because you make it seem too big in your mind. The 2-minute rule tricks your brain into thinking that the habit you're about to perform isn't as difficult as it seems. You need to break down that big habit into a smaller 2-minute version. Even though your ultimate goal might not be achievable in 2 minutes, every habit can start in this short amount of time. Once you begin doing something, it's easier to continue. For example, want to turn reading into a new habit? Apply the 2-minute rule. Just read 1 page of a book. Yes, just 1 page. Then you can stop if you want, but you must do it for at least 2 minutes. Your ultimate goal may be to finish the entire book, but the initial expectation is just to start reading, even a little. Many people think reading 1 page is meaningless, but in reality, it's the first step to building a sustainable habit. But a new habit doesn't have to feel like a chore. Otherwise, you'll start to resent it. While subsequent steps may be challenging, the first 2 minutes are easy. The goal of any habit is to make it a natural part of your life. You can't expect to sustain a habit to the point of exhaustion. So, initially, you need to train yourself to start by taking the smallest and simplest steps. Once you've started, continuing becomes easier because by then, the psychological resistance has dissipated and you're genuinely engaging in the habit you desire. 2. Applying the 2-minute rule and building habits. Applying the 2-minute rule, your goals transform as follows. Become a writer turns into just write 1 sentence, floss daily, becomes use dental floss for 1 tooth, run 3 miles, becomes put on running shoes and step outside. All of these are simple to execute, but crucial from the outset. You can't write a book if you can't even write a sentence. You can't become an athlete if you can't put on your running shoes. Whether it's a single word or just walking around the block, it's better than doing nothing at all. The most important thing is you're building and reinforcing habits step by step. Ultimately, from the first sentences you write, you'll build a paragraph, then a chapter, and eventually a whole book. But you have to start with that first sentence. Let me share an example of how I applied the 2-minute rule to my own life. I've always wanted to learn to play the piano, so I bought a piano. In the first week, I was excited and spent a lot of time practicing, so that wasn't difficult. But as the initial motivation faded, I started playing less. Recognizing this, I set a goal to practice every day, even if only for a short time. Back to those early days, I had renewed enthusiasm and restarted practicing. But like before, the final motivation dwindled and the piano began to fade into neglect. Even when I wanted to play, my brain easily convinced me to avoid the tiring hour of practice. That's when I realized my overly high expectations were hindering my start. Initially, I thought I had to practice for at least an hour to play the piano, but because of that mindset, I didn't practice at all. After applying the 2-minute rule, I significantly changed my goal. Now, my aim is just to play anything on the piano for 2 minutes. It's truly magical. There's almost no mental resistance when I start playing, even poorly, because it's just 2 minutes. My brain also likes the idea of doing something as simple as that. But what's really extraordinary is that continuing to practice longer becomes much easier. I mean, I'm actually sitting there and playing. So why wouldn't you keep going? Thanks to the 2-minute rule, I turned playing the piano into a habit, and from there, I've never looked back. 3. Benefits of applying the 2-minute rule. Every day, even when I don't feel like playing, I stop and spend just 2 minutes. The key is to maintain and reinforce this habit. Even playing the piano for 2 minutes is a decision that many people give up on. Ultimately, if I couldn't sit down and play for just 2 minutes, I would never be able to become a piano artist. Therefore, I suggest applying the 2-minute rule to yourself when trying to maintain a new habit. The most important thing when starting a new habit is getting started. Don't worry too much about success or how long that habit will last. Instead, focus on consistently making efforts to achieve the goal. Rather than trying to create a perfect habit right from the start, consistently do the simplest thing. That's how you turn that habit from an idea into a reality. Writing one sentence is better than writing nothing. Practicing piano for 1 minute is better than not touching the piano at all. Holding a book and reading for at least 1 minute is better than letting it gather dust. Doing less than what you expect is better than doing nothing at all. Your performance can improve later. Remember, you can't improve a habit if you haven't started it.